7 veterans surrounded the newbie, but they never imagined she was trained by the master. Mrs. Dorothy held her granddaughter's trembling little hand tightly as she watched the 7 women approach with disapproving looks. Little Emily, just 8 years old, had just stepped onto the mat at the Hope Dojo in the heart of Soho for the first time, and she already felt the weight of the veterans' judging stares. "Instructor Samantha, are you sure you're going to accept a child so young?" questioned Jennifer, one of the oldest in the group. "She can barely tie her white belt properly." The other veterans whispered among themselves, discreetly pointing at Emily. The girl with curly hair and big brown eyes remained quiet, but her fingers squeezed her grandmother's hand tighter with every mean comment she heard. "Just look at her size, instructor," said Amanda, crossing her arms. "She's going to disrupt our serious training. This isn't a recreational daycare." Mrs. Dorothy felt her heart tighten. At 68 years old, she had fought so hard to get this spot for her granddaughter. The doctor had been clear about her condition. The degenerative arthritis was progressing rapidly, and in a few months, she would have difficulty properly caring for Emily. Martial arts could give the girl the discipline and strength she would need to face the difficult times ahead. "Please, Instructor Samantha," begged the grandmother, approaching the instructor. "Emily is a special girl. She learns fast and won't be any trouble. I'll pay up front if necessary." Instructor Samantha observed the scene with some hesitation. She was a 42-year-old woman who had taken over the dojo after her father had mysteriously disappeared 2 years prior. Since then, the environment had become more competitive, more commercial. The veterans paid well and didn't like changes to the routine. "All right," Samantha finally sighed, "but on one condition. If she can't keep up with the pace in 2 weeks, we'll have to reconsider the situation." The veterans exchanged irritated glances. Barbara, the oldest of the group at 55, shook her head in disapproval. "This is a mistake, instructor. Children have no place here," she murmured to her companions. Emily heard everything but didn't say a word. Her eyes scanned the environment, the clean mat, the mirrors on the walls, the punching bags hanging in the corner. Something about that place felt familiar, as if she had been there in her dreams. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. In the first few days, the veterans made a point of making Emily's life hell. During warm-ups, they always put her in front to demonstrate exercises she didn't know yet. When the girl tried to imitate the movements and failed, low laughs echoed through the dojo. "See," commented Christine, a 40-year-old lawyer, "she can't even get the basic moves right." "It's a waste of time," agreed Rebecca, shaking her head. "Her grandmother should have enrolled her in a little ballet school." But there was something about Emily that intrigued even her fiercest critics. The girl never cried, never complained. She just watched each movement, each demonstrated technique attentively, as if she was recording everything in her memory. One morning, Mrs. Jenkins, the building's cleaner, arrived early to clean the dojo and found a surprise. There was Emily, alone on the mat, performing a sequence of moves that would impress any experienced practitioner. "Girl!" called Mrs. Jenkins, startled. "How did you get in here? The dojo doesn't open before 7. Emily stopped in the middle of a complex kata, her face slightly flushed from the effort. "The door was open, Mrs. Jenkins. I just wanted to practice a little before class." "But who taught you those moves?" "I've worked here for 10 years and never seen Instructor Samantha teach that to beginners." The girl lowered her eyes, looking embarrassed. "It's just, someone helps me train early in the morning, at the corner park." Mrs. Jenkins felt something strange about that answer. What kind of person would be training an 8-year-old before sunrise? "Does your guardian know about this child?" "Grandma Dorothy doesn't need to worry. The man is very kind and just wants to help me," replied Emily simply. The cleaner decided not to get involved, but promised herself she'd keep an eye out. In the following days, she started arriving even earlier and always found Emily practicing alone, performing techniques that seemed far too advanced for her age and experience. During regular classes, the senior students intensified their teasing. Karen, a 45-year-old businesswoman, had taken the lead in the bullying group. "Emily, come up front," she ordered during a class. "Let's see if you can perform the sequence the instructor just taught." The girl positioned herself at the center of the mat, while the 7 senior students formed a circle around her. Instructor Samantha was taking an important phone call in the office and didn't notice what was happening. "You may begin," said Karen with a cruel smile. "Show us all how a beginner performs a yellow belt kata." Emily took a deep breath. The sequence the instructor had demonstrated was truly complex, with direction changes and combinations of punches and kicks that required balance and coordination. For a white belt, it would be nearly impossible to perform correctly. But when the girl started moving, something extraordinary happened. Her movements were fluid, precise, as if she'd practiced that sequence for years. Every transition was perfect, every technique executed with a precision that would even impress instructor Samantha. The senior students stopped laughing. A heavy silence fell over the room. Jennifer looked at Barbara, who in turn looked at Amanda. They were all seeing the same thing, but none could believe it. "That's impossible," murmured Rebecca. "She couldn't have learned this in 2 weeks." "Someone's helping her," said Christine suspiciously. "No one learns that fast." Karen felt her authority being challenged. As the group's leader, she couldn't let an 8-year-old make fools of them. "Very pretty," she said with false admiration. "But anyone can memorize a kata. Let's see how you fare in a real situation." Barbara realized where Karen was heading and tried to intervene. "Karen, she's just a child. A child who apparently knows more than she's showing," Karen retorted. "If she's that good, she won't have problems handling a senior student, will she?" Emily remained at the center of the circle, watching the expressions of the women around her. She could feel the hostility growing, but she felt no fear. There was something inside her, a strange calmness, as if she'd been through similar situations before. "I don't want to fight anyone," she said in her sweet child's voice. "I just want to learn." "Oh, how cute," Karen mocked. "But the real world doesn't work that way, little one. Sometimes we have to prove our worth." The businesswoman positioned herself in front of Emily, assuming a combat stance. The other senior students exchanged glances, some clearly uncomfortable with the situation, but none dared to stop Karen. "Let's do this," said Karen. "If you can take me down, we'll stop teasing you, but if I take you down, you disappear from here and never come back." Emily looked at the woman in front of her. Karen was strong, experienced, at least 3 times her size. In any normal situation, it would be an absolutely unfair fight. But something inside the girl wouldn't let her feel fear. "Okay," agreed Emily with simplicity. Karen smiled, expecting an easy victory. She moved forward with a straight punch, trying to end the fight quickly. But Emily simply wasn't where Karen expected her to be anymore. The girl had moved with impressive speed and fluidity, dodging the attack as if it were a dance. Karen tried a kick, then another punch, then a grab. All attacks went through empty air. "Stand still," shouted Karen, frustrated. But Emily kept moving around her, always one step ahead, always out of reach. Her movements were hypnotic, almost as if she were floating across the mat. The other veterans watched open-mouthed. Amanda recognized something familiar in the girl's movements, but couldn't identify what. "That technique," murmured Jennifer. "I've seen that before." Karen was getting more and more irritated. She increased the intensity of her attacks, but it seemed like she was fighting a ghost. Emily didn't fight back. She only dodged, as if she knew exactly where each attack would be aimed before it even happened. It was then that Instructor Samantha returned from the office and found that scene. Her reaction was immediate. "What is going on here?" she shouted, running to the middle of the mat. Karen stopped mid-movement, breathing heavily. The other veterans stepped back, trying to look innocent, but Samantha wasn't foolish. She could see what was happening. "Karen, were you fighting with an 8-year-old child?" The instructor's voice trembled with indignation. "I was just testing her," defended Karen. "If she wants to train here, she needs to show she can defend herself." Samantha looked at Emily, who remained calm in the center of the mat, not even out of breath. What impressed her most wasn't the girl's calmness, but the way she had moved. Those dodges, that fluidity. "Emily," called Samantha softly, "where did you learn to move like that?" The girl hesitated for a moment, as if deciding how much she should reveal. "An old man teaches me in the park early in the morning. He said I have a knack for martial arts." "What old man?" asked Samantha, feeling something strange in her chest. He's quite old, with white hair and kind eyes. He always wears a dark blue guy. He said he's known this dojo for a long time. Samantha's blood ran cold. The description Emily had given matched her father, Master Richard, who had mysteriously disappeared 2 years earlier. But that was impossible. He had left for Japan, according to the letter he left. He couldn't be in the United States, much less training a child in the neighborhood park. "What's his name?" she asked with a trembling voice. "He never told me his name. But I call him Grandpa Richard. He likes it." Samantha felt her legs go weak. There was no doubt. The man training Emily was her father, the founder of the Hope Dojo. But why had he lied about leaving for Japan? Why was he hiding from her? And why had he chosen to train that particular girl? The veterans noticed the change in the instructor's face. Jennifer approached, concerned. "Instructor Samantha, are you okay?" I need to speak with Emily in private," said Samantha, still in shock. "All of you can leave early today. Training is over. Dear listener, if you are enjoying the story, please take a moment to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing." After the veterans left, Samantha sat on the mat next to Emily. The girl remained calm, but there was a wisdom in her eyes that didn't match her 8 years of age. "Emily, I need you to tell me everything about this man who teaches you. It's very important." The girl played with the ends of her white belt while organizing her thoughts. "Grandma Dorothy doesn't know anything. I wake up very early before she gets up, and I go to the park. Grandpa Richard is always there, waiting. He teaches me beautiful things about how to move my body, how to breathe, how to find peace even when people are mean to me." "How long has this been happening?" "Since I was 6. It was right after Daddy left and Mummy got very sad. Grandma Dorothy took me to live with her and I felt very alone. Then one day I was crying in the park and Grandpa Richard appeared." Samantha felt her heart tighten. Emily's story echoed her own experience. She had also felt abandoned when her father left, had also struggled to understand why he had gone away without explanations. "What else does he teach you?" "He talks about respect, about how to be strong without hurting anyone. He said that martial arts aren't for fighting, but for protecting and helping. When the girls here started being mean to me, he taught me that it happened because they were afraid of something." "Afraid of what?" "I'm not sure. But Grandpa Richard said that people who hurt other people are always in pain inside, and that we shouldn't be angry with them. We should feel sorry for them." Emily's words were exactly the kind of philosophy that Master Richard had always preached. Samantha recognized her father's teachings in every sentence the girl spoke. But there was still something that didn't make sense. "Why did he choose you, Emily? Why you?" The girl was silent for a long moment, as if struggling with a difficult decision. "He said that both of you are hurt, and that maybe I could help heal that hurt. Both of you." "You and him, Instructor Samantha. He said you are his daughter, and that he is very sorry for having left, but that he needed to do it for you to learn an important lesson." Samantha felt tears burning her eyes. For 2 years she had wondered why her father had abandoned her. She had taken over the dojo with bitterness, turning it into a cold and competitive business, very different from the welcoming place it used to be. What lesson? That martial arts aren't about being the strongest or the fastest. They're about helping people find peace. He said you forgot that when you took over the dojo. The truth of Emily's words hit Samantha like a punch in the stomach. She really had transformed the Hope Dojo into something her father would never approve of. She had prioritized students who paid more, tolerated behavior like that of the senior students, and lost sight of the true values of martial arts. "Where can I find him?" "I don't know if he'll want to see you yet. He said you need to first remember why you started practicing martial arts." Samantha closed her eyes, trying to remember. She had started training when she was 5 with her father. Not for competition or status, but because she loved the feeling of movement, the philosophy behind each technique, the way martial arts connected body and mind. "Will he be at the park tomorrow morning?" she finally asked. "He always is. But I think now he'll want to talk to you too." That night Samantha could barely sleep. Her mind was buzzing with questions and memories. At dawn, she dressed in her simplest gi and walked to the corner park. It was still very early, the sun had barely risen, The park was empty except for a familiar figure sitting under a large tree. Master Richard looked exactly as she remembered. White hair, kind eyes, an upright posture despite his 72 years. "Dad?" she called with a trembling voice. Richard raised his eyes and smiled sadly. "Hello, Samantha. I was waiting for you." "Why?" The question came out as a whisper filled with pain. "Why did you abandon me?" "Because you were losing your way, my child. And sometimes the only way to help someone find the right direction is to let them get completely lost first." Samantha approached, tears streaming freely down her face. "I missed you so much. And the dojo. I ruined everything, didn't I?" "You didn't ruin it. You just forgot what's most important, but it's not too late to remember." Father and daughter embraced there under the tree as the sun rose over New York City. It was their first hug in 2 years, and it carried all the weight of their separation and reunion. "Emily is special," said Samantha, still in her father's arms. "All children are special when they find someone who believes in them. But Emily has something more. She has the pure heart and the determination that you had when you were little. And the senior students, they treated her so badly. People do that when they're afraid of losing their place. They see a small, talented child and think it diminishes their own worth. But you can change that." "How?" "By reminding everyone why they started practicing martial arts in the first place. Nobody walks into a dojo for the first time wanting to be mean. They lost their way, just like you." When Samantha returned to the dojo that morning, she found a surprise. Emily was there practicing alone, but this time accompanied by Mrs. Dorothy, who watched her granddaughter with a mix of pride and concern. "Good morning, Instructor Samantha," the grandmother greeted. "I hope you don't mind. I woke up early today and decided to come with Emily." "Of course I don't mind, Mrs. Dorothy. Actually, I wanted to talk to you." While Emily continued practicing, Samantha sat down next to the grandmother on the makeshift bleachers. "Did you know that Emily is receiving extra training?" Mrs. Dorothy sighed deeply. "I suspected something was happening. She came home too tired for someone who had only trained here, and the moves she practices in the backyard, they're too advanced for a beginner." "Why didn't you ask her?" "Because I'm afraid of the answer." The confession came out filled with pain. "Instructor, I don't have much time. The arthritis is getting worse, and soon I won't be able to take care of Emily properly anymore. If someone is truly helping her, maybe it's better not to interfere." Samantha felt her heart tighten. Mrs. Dorothy was a strong woman who had raised her granddaughter alone after the girl's parents had separated traumatically. The idea of not being able to protect Emily anymore must have been devastating. "Mrs. Dorothy, I can assure you that the person training Emily is someone completely trustworthy. In fact, it's my father, the founder of this dojo." The look of relief on the grandmother's face was evident. "So you know about the secret training?" "I found out yesterday, and I also discovered that my father never left the United States as I thought. He was here the whole time, waiting for the right moment to return." "And what was that moment?" Samantha looked at Emily, who was executing a complex sequence with the grace of a dancer. "When I remembered why martial arts exist, and when someone like Emily appeared to teach me that again." The senior students began arriving for the morning training. First was Jennifer, followed by Barbara and Amanda. They all found it strange to see Mrs. Dorothy there, but greeted her politely. Karen was the last to arrive, still visibly upset about the events of the previous day. "Instructor," said Karen, approaching, "about yesterday, I think I may have overreacted a bit." Samantha observed the group of women. They had all come to the dojo for personal reasons. Jennifer to overcome a difficult divorce, Barbara to deal with empty nest syndrome, Amanda to control anxiety, Karen to channel professional frustration. At some point, they had lost sight of these original goals and turned the dojo into a toxic competition zone. "Karen, all of you," said Samantha, getting the group's attention, "I want you to tell me why you started practicing martial arts." The question took everyone by surprise. They looked at each other, not understanding where Samantha was going with this. "Instructor," questioned Jennifer, "it's a simple question. Why did you come here for the first time? What did you hope to find?" Karen crossed her arms, defensive. I don't understand the relevance of this. The relevance is that you've become something you never imagined you'd become when you first stepped in here, and so have I. Silence took over the room. Emily stopped training and approached the group, sensing the tension in the air. "I'll start," said Samantha. "I started practicing martial arts because my father taught me that they could make me a better person. Not physically stronger, but more balanced, more capable of helping others. At some point, I forgot that and turned this place into a business." Barbara was the first to speak. "I came here after my last child left home. I felt useless, without purpose. I thought martial arts would give me a new identity." "And did they?" asked Samantha softly. "They gave me the identity of an intimidating veteran. I'm not sure that's what I wanted." Amanda cleared her throat before speaking. "I came here during an anxiety crisis. I had just lost a job I loved and was afraid I wouldn't be able to get back on my feet. I thought training would give me confidence." "And do you feel more confident by mistreating an 8-year-old child?" asked Samantha, but without aggression. Amanda lowered her eyes, clearly ashamed. "No, I feel worse." One by one, the veterans shared their stories. Jennifer talked about the traumatic divorce and how she had sought in martial arts a way to feel strong again. Christine told about the problems with her teenage daughter and how she hoped the training would help her be more patient. Rebecca revealed her professional insecurities and how she tried to compensate for them by being dominant in the dojo. Karen was the last to speak, and her voice was choked up. "I came here because my company was going through a restructuring, and I was about to be fired. I wanted to learn to defend myself, to not let anyone humiliate me, but I ended up becoming the person who humiliates others." Samantha looked at Emily, who had listened to everything in silence. The girl approached Karen. "You're not mean," she said in her sweet voice. "You're just scared. Grandpa Richard taught me that when people do bad things, it's because they're hurting inside." Karen knelt down to be at Emily's height. "You're right, little one. I was hurting and ended up making you suffer too. Will you forgive me?" Emily smiled and held out her little hand. "Of course. But can we train together properly now?" Around 10 in the morning, Master Richard appeared at the dojo door. His presence was imposing, but at the same time gentle. The veterans bowed respectfully, acknowledging the man's natural authority. "Dad," said Samantha, going to meet him, "the girls would like to meet you officially." Richard observed the group of women, then looked at Emily, who ran to hug him. "Grandpa Richard, you came?" "Of course I came, little one. I wanted to see how your progress was with your new friends." Karen stepped forward, still visibly nervous. "Master, I wanted to apologize for my behavior yesterday. It was not worthy of a martial arts practitioner." Richard observed her for a long moment before answering. "Karen, you shouldn't be apologizing to me. You should be apologizing to yourself. You betrayed your own values yesterday." "How can I make it right?" "By helping others not to make the same mistake, by turning your bad experience into wisdom to share." In the following days, the dojo's dynamic changed completely. The senior students, led by Karen, began to see Emily not as a threat, but as an opportunity to rediscover their own passion for martial arts. Jennifer offered to help Emily with the most basic movements, discovering in the process that teaching was as rewarding as learning. Barbara started telling Emily stories about her own children, finding a new purpose in being a maternal figure for the girl. Amanda, who had always been very anxious, found that Emily's natural tranquility helped her relax. Christine began applying, at home with her teenage daughter, the patience that Emily demonstrated every day. Rebecca noticed that her professional insecurities diminished when she focused on helping others, and she began to mentor Emily in aspects that went beyond martial arts. Master Richard started frequenting the dojo again, but now as an assistant teacher. He introduced ancient techniques, forgotten philosophies, and gradually the Hope Dojo recovered its original essence. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like the video and especially to subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. 3 months after the events that changed the dojo, Emily was preparing for her first public demonstration. The event would be a celebration of the new values of the Hope Dojo, and there would be family, friends, and other martial arts practitioners from the region. Mrs. Dorothy, despite the increasing limitations imposed by her arthritis, wouldn't miss that moment for anything in the world. She had gotten a treatment that, while it wouldn't cure her condition, would at least slow its progress. This would give her a few more years to follow her granddaughter's growth. "Grandma Dorothy," Emily said on the morning of the demonstration, "are you nervous?" "A little, my dear, but it's a good kind of nervous. I'm proud to see how you've grown, not just in martial arts, but as a person. The girls from the dojo have helped me a lot. They aren't mean to me anymore." "They were never truly mean, Emily. They were just lost, like all of us get sometimes." The dojo was decorated simply but elegantly. Flags from the United States and Japan hung from the walls, symbolizing the union of the cultures. The central mat was prepared for the demonstrations, and temporary bleachers accommodated about 50 people. Among the guests were some practitioners from other dojos in the region who had heard about the transformation of the Hope Dojo. There were also neighbors, co-workers of the senior students, and some curious children. Master Richard opened the ceremony with a speech about the true values of martial arts. His voice, though gentle, carried an authority that commanded absolute respect. "Martial arts are not about creating warriors," he said. "They are about creating better people, people who know when to fight and when to make peace, people who protect the weak and lift up those who have fallen." Instructor Samantha introduced each of the senior students, telling a little about each one's personal journey. When it was Karen's turn, the businesswoman stood up with visible emotion. "When I arrived here, I was full of anger and fear. I thought martial arts would teach me how to intimidate others, but I learned that true strength is being kind when you have the power to be cruel." The audience applauded, touched by the sincerity of the testimony. Then came the moment everyone was waiting for, Emily's demonstration. The girl stepped onto the mat, wearing an impeccable white gi, with her newly earned yellow belt. Her curly hair was tied up in a simple bun, highlighting her serene and focused expression. Emily will perform a sequence that combines traditional techniques with movements she developed during her morning training sessions, announced Samantha. The girl positioned herself in the center of the mat and began to move. It was like watching a poetic dance. Each movement flowed naturally into the next, creating a visual narrative that hypnotized the audience. But the most impressive thing wasn't Emily's perfect technique. It was the tranquility that emanated from her, the peace that her movements conveyed. There was no aggressiveness, no violence, only beauty, harmony, and a perfect demonstration that martial arts could be an art form. During the presentation, Emily included elements that had clearly been inspired by each of the senior students. A fluid movement that recalled Jennifer's natural grace, a defensive sequence that echoed Barbara's maternal protectiveness, smooth transitions that reflected the patience Amanda had developed. When she finished, silence filled the room for a few seconds. Then the audience erupted in applause. Several people had tears in their eyes, moved by the purity of the demonstration. Mrs. Dorothy rose with difficulty, leaning on her cane, and was the first to go congratulate her granddaughter. The hug between them was long and full of meaning. "I'm so proud of you, my girl," whispered the grandmother. "I'm proud of you too, Grandma. You taught me to be strong even when everything seemed difficult." The senior students approached one by one, each offering their congratulations and words of encouragement. Karen was the last, and when it was her turn, she knelt down to be at Emily's eye level. "Thank you for teaching me that the real victory isn't defeating others, but helping them to be better," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "You taught me that too," replied Emily. "When you stopped trying to hurt me and started to help me, I learned that people can change." After the official ceremony, there was a community lunch where everyone could chat more casually. It was during this gathering that some important secrets came to light. One of the guests, a man about 60 years old, approached Master Richard. "Richard, I don't know if you remember me. I'm William Peterson from the Tradition Dojo." "Of course I remember you, William. How are you?" "Well, but I confess I came here out of curiosity. I've been hearing interesting things about a transformation that happened around here." "And what did you think of what you saw?" William Peterson looked around, observing the senior students chatting animatedly with other guests, Emily playing with some children who had come, Samantha circulating and making sure everyone felt welcome. I was impressed. My dojo is going through problems similar to what you had. Some senior students are creating a hostile environment for the newcomers. I'd been trying to fix that with rules and punishments, but it wasn't working. Rules and punishments treat the symptoms, not the cause, replied Richard. The problem usually isn't malice, it's fear. Fear of losing status, fear of being surpassed, fear of no longer being valued. And how did you solve it here? I didn't solve it. They solved it. I just created the conditions for them to remember who they really wanted to be. William Peterson was clearly interested in learning more. Richard introduced him to Samantha and the senior students, who shared their experiences openly and honestly. Jennifer told how she had discovered that mentoring newcomers was more rewarding than competing with them. Barbara talked about how channeling her maternal instinct at the dojo had even improved her relationship with her own children. Amanda explained how helping Emily overcome difficulties had reduced her own anxiety. The secret, said Karen, is to remember that we were all beginners once, and that someone was patient with us when we knew nothing. During the conversation, an interesting detail emerged. William Peterson mentioned he was having specific problems with a group of 3 senior students who had formed a kind of exclusive club, intimidating newcomers and creating divisions in the dojo. That's exactly what was happening here, said Rebecca. We became a closed group, as if the dojo were our private territory. And how did you break that dynamic? With the help of someone who wasn't afraid of us, replied Christine, looking at Emily. An 8-year-old girl wasn't afraid of you. She had something more powerful than fear, explained Barbara. She had purpose. She knew exactly why she was there and wasn't going to let anyone stand in her way. The conversation revealed something important. The transformation of the Hope Dojo wasn't an isolated case. Many martial arts academies and schools faced similar problems when they lost sight of their core values. Master Richard suggested that the dojos in the region unite to promote events that celebrated the positive aspects of martial arts, creating a mutual support network. Competition is healthy when it elevates all participants, he said. It becomes destructive when the goal is to diminish others. Samantha was excited by the idea. We could organize joint demonstrations, workshops on martial arts philosophy, maybe even an exchange program between dojos. The proposal was well received by William Peterson and other representatives present. There the seed was planted for what would become the Harmony Network, an association of dojos committed to the traditional values of martial arts. But not everything was perfect. During the gathering, Samantha noticed that Mrs. Dorothy seemed especially tired. Emily's grandmother was sitting in a chair, watching her granddaughter play, but there was something melancholy in her expression. Mrs. Dorothy, are you feeling all right? Physically, as expected, but emotionally. She sighed deeply. I'm happy to see Emily flourishing, but also worried about the future. What specifically worries you? The arthritis is progressing faster than we expected. In a few months, I'll need help with basic activities, and Emily is still so young. Samantha felt her heart tighten. During all those months focused on the dojo's transformation, she had forgotten that Mrs. Dorothy was fighting a much more serious personal battle. Do you have other relatives who can help? I have a sister in Boston, but she's also elderly. And Emily's parents, well, they created a very complicated situation when they separated. Complicated how? Mrs. Dorothy hesitated before answering. Emily's father disappeared after the separation. He just vanished, left the city. No one knows where he is. Her mother fell into severe depression and has been in a clinic in Philadelphia for 2 years. The revelation shocked Samantha. She had assumed Emily lived with her grandmother by choice, not by necessity. The situation was much more serious than she had imagined. Does Emily know all this? She knows her mother is sick and that her father left, but she doesn't fully understand the gravity of the situation. I preferred to protect her while I could. And what will happen when you can no longer take care of her? That's the question that keeps me up every night. Samantha looked at Emily, who was teaching some basic moves to younger children. The girl radiated happiness and confidence, with no idea of the storm approaching her life. "Mrs. Dorothy, can I talk to my father about this? Maybe he has a suggestion." "Of course, my dear. Any help will be welcome." That night, Samantha had a long conversation with Master Richard about Emily's situation. Her father listened in silence, asking specific questions to better understand the situation. "It's a delicate situation," he finally said, "but not impossible to solve. What do you suggest?" "First, we need to understand what the legal options are. Does Mrs. Dorothy have official custody of Emily?" "I don't know. I'll ask." "Second, we need to think about a support network for when the time comes. Emily can't just be thrown into the system." "What are you thinking?" Richard was silent for a moment, clearly pondering something important. "I'm thinking that maybe it's time for me to take on a greater responsibility in that girl's life." "What do you mean?" "Samantha, are you married? Do you have children?" "No, Dad. I haven't found the right person yet. And I lost 2 years of your life because of my pride. I don't want Emily to go through what you went through, feeling abandoned by the person who was supposed to protect her." Samantha realized where her father was heading. "Are you suggesting that I'm suggesting we consider the possibility of ensuring that Emily always has a family. If we can't save her original family, we can create a new one for her." The idea was too big for Samantha to process immediately. Adopting Emily would mean a complete change in her life, but at the same time the girl had already caused such a profound shift in her perspective that perhaps it was a natural step. "I need to think about this, Dad." "Of course. But don't take too long. Time may be shorter than we think." In the following days, Samantha watched Emily with different eyes. The girl was still the same sweet and determined child as always, but now Samantha also saw the vulnerability behind the apparent strength. During a private training session, Samantha decided to probe Emily's feelings about family. "Emily, do you miss your parents?" The girl stopped in the middle of a kata and became thoughtful. "I miss Mommy, but she was very sad when she lived with us. Maybe it's better for her to stay at the clinic until she gets better." "And your father?" "Not really. He yelled a lot before he left. Grandma Dorothy is better than him." "And if one day you had to go live with other people, how would you feel?" Emily looked at her with her big brown eyes, showing an intuition that was impressive. "Grandma Dorothy is getting sicker, isn't she?" Samantha couldn't lie. "Yes, she is." "And you're thinking about adopting me?" The direct question took Samantha by surprise. "How did you—" "Grandpa Richard taught me to pay attention to things, and you've been looking at me differently for a few days, like when someone is thinking about important decisions." Samantha sat down on the tatami mat next to Emily. "And what would you think about that?" "I think it would be cool. You're good to me, and Grandpa Richard is too. And I already like being here at the dojo. But do you understand it would be a very big change? All the changes in my life have been big, and most of them turned out good in the end." The maturity of the answer moved Samantha deeply. At 8 years old, Emily had already faced more changes and losses than many adults. "Let's talk to your grandmother about this, okay?" "Okay, but Instructor Samantha." "Yes? Even if I go live with you, can I still visit Grandma Dorothy always?" "Always." 3 days later, Samantha, Master Richard, and Mrs. Dorothy met for a conversation that would definitively change the course of Emily's life. The meeting took place at the grandmother's house, a small apartment in the East Village that breathed simplicity and affection. Mrs. Dorothy had prepared coffee and a simple cake, trying to create a welcoming atmosphere for a discussion she knew was necessary, but painful. "Mrs. Dorothy," began Samantha, "we've talked about Emily's situation, and we want to propose something." "I'm listening." "My father and I would like to take custody of Emily when you can no longer properly care for her." The grandmother was silent for a long moment, tears rolling silently down her face. "I always knew this day would come, and I always wondered if I would be able to find good people to take care of my girl." "It wouldn't be a separation, Mrs. Dorothy," said Master Richard gently. "You would always be her grandmother. You would always be welcome in our family." "And Emily would continue to visit you regularly," added Samantha. Nothing would change in the love she feels for you. Have you already talked to her about this? We have, and she was happy about the possibility. Mrs. Dorothy wiped her tears and smiled sadly. Then I think we have an agreement, but I want to make a few things clear. Of course. First, I want Emily to always know the truth about her story, about her parents, about me, about how she came to you. We agree, said Samantha. Second, I want her to keep our family's last name. It's the only thing I can leave her from her father. No problem. Third, if one day her parents recover and want to take back responsibility, you will support whatever is best for Emily, not what is most convenient for you. This last condition touched on a sensitive point. Samantha realized that Mrs. Dorothy was testing whether they were really thinking about Emily's well-being or just their own feelings. Mrs. Dorothy, our goal is to give Emily the stability and love she deserves. If one day her parents can offer that better than we can, we will support the decision that is best for her. The answer seemed to satisfy the grandmother. Then it's decided. I will look for a lawyer to start the custody transfer process. Don't worry about the legal costs, said Master Richard. We will cover all expenses. And in the meantime, you can gradually start moving into our house, suggested Samantha. We have a guest room that can be yours for as long as you want. That would be wonderful. That way I could be there for Emily's adjustment. When Emily came home from school that afternoon, she found the three most important adults in her life sitting at the table, smiling in a way she recognized as good news. Did something good happen? She asked, dropping her backpack. It did, my dear, said Mrs. Dorothy, opening her arms. Come here. Emily ran into her grandmother's hug, who held her tenderly. Remember how we talked about how families sometimes change their shape? I remember. Well, our family is going to change a little. You are going to live with Instructor Samantha and Grandpa Richard, but I will be living near you. We will still be a family, just in a bigger house. Emily looked at Samantha and Master Richard, then back at her grandmother. And you will be okay. I will be better, because I won't have to worry about taking care of you all by myself. There will be more people to help me. Then it's okay. When are we moving? The simplicity with which Emily accepted the change moved everyone. For her, family wasn't defined by blood or legal roles, but by love and care. The transition process took 2 months. During this period, Emily began spending some nights at Samantha and Richard's house, and others at her grandmother's, to gradually get used to the change. The house that would be her new home was on a quiet street in Soho, just 3 blocks from the dojo. It was a single-story house with a large backyard, perfect for an active child like Emily. Samantha transformed one of the rooms into a special space for the girl, with a small training area, a bookcase, and walls decorated with photos of the extended family that now included the veterans from the dojo. During the move, some emotional surprises appeared. While organizing Emily's things, Mrs. Dorothy found a notebook where the girl had written and drawn her memories from the last few months. Look what I found, said the grandmother, showing a specific page. It was a drawing of Emily surrounded by 7 female figures, but this time they were all smiling and looked like friends. At the top of the page, she had written in her childish handwriting, "My teachers of the heart." Samantha felt her eyes well up upon seeing that. Emily had transformed her bullies into an extended family, finding love where others would see only rejection. Another touching discovery was a letter that Emily had written to herself, apparently right after the first difficult days at the dojo. Dear future Emily, today was a sad day. The big girls were mean to me, but Grandpa Richard said it wouldn't last forever. He said that sometimes people need time to discover that you are cool. I hope that when you read this, the girls will have figured it out. And I hope you haven't forgotten to be kind to other kids who are just arriving. The letter revealed an impressive emotional depth for an 8-year-old child. Emily had not only overcome adversity, but had learned from it. On the day of the official move, the dojo veterans made a point of helping. Karen organized the operation as if it were a corporate project. Jennifer made sure everything was packed carefully. Barbara prepared food for everyone. Amanda distracted Emily with games so she wouldn't get anxious with all the commotion. Christine organized the important documents, and Rebecca coordinated the transportation. "They really look like a family," commented Mrs. Dorothy's neighbor, watching the activity. "They are a family," replied the grandmother with a smile. "It just took them a little while to recognize it." Emily's first night in the new house was marked by a special ritual. Master Richard had prepared a simple but meaningful ceremony in the backyard. "Emily," he said, lighting a white candle, "today you are beginning a new chapter in your life, but that doesn't mean forgetting the previous chapters." Samantha approached with a second candle. "This house is your house. You are not a visitor or a guest. You are our daughter, our granddaughter, our family." Mrs. Dorothy, even with mobility difficulties, made a point of lighting the third candle. "And I am your grandmother forever. It doesn't matter where we live. It doesn't matter how our family grows or changes." Emily took the 3 candles and placed them in a special lantern that Master Richard had made. "Now I have 3 lights to guide me," she said. "The light of Instructor Samantha, who teaches me to be strong. The light of Grandpa Richard, who teaches me to be wise. And the light of Grandma Dorothy, who teaches me to be loving." They stood there in the backyard, watching the candles flicker inside the lantern, each lost in their own thoughts about the journey that had brought them to that moment. End of story. What an incredible journey we've followed together. Emily taught us that true strength doesn't come from the ability to defeat others, but from the courage to turn enemies into family. Which moment moved you the most in this story? Leave your opinion about the transformation of the veterans in the comments and subscribe for more heart-touching stories.